Yes. So the recording is start. So official welcome for everybody who joined us tonight on the Design Thinking on D&I and Community workshop. So I'm Benita. So just a little bit about myself. I identify as lesbian. I've been doing some work in the LGBT space, whether it's doing LGBT tour, whether it's helping for Idaho. I'm also a scuba diving instructor, environmentalist, and I run Encompass. So this is this thing you see in the slide here is called Identity Map. I do this in some of my workshops. Sorry, I might need to mute some of you, so just so the recording is clear. So I use this identity map. I think it's quite helpful for us to map out like what identity is important for us, whether it's your religion, whether it's your sexual orientation, whether it's what you like. So if you are in a corporate setting and you want to do that with your colleagues, I think that's a great start. So now I want to have a second poll. I do want to know a little bit about you. So I know we have a diverse group here, whether you are LGBT advocate, or whether you are from Hong Kong, or whether you got more Bible accent. Or I think the fourth question is quite interesting. Have you ever tried to distance yourself from your identities? And that could be your sexual orientation, that could be your religion, that could be your disability or whatever that is. So I just want to have a quick poll here about you. So interestingly, I think the second question, so a few of you are being mocked by your accent. So I don't know if it's because of your English or your Chinese, whether you are biracial living in Hong Kong, you get mocked. I think there will be different reason. And the third question is whether the media consciously portray people like you. So for me as a LGBT, I think, and as a kind of like a tomboy, I think the Hong Kong media is not very fair for us. And have you ever tried to distance yourself? It seems most of us are. So interesting. Thank you everybody for participating in that. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think for the fourth question, almost all of us have tried to distance ourselves of some of our identity. So I think today Joseph will give us a very good overview of what those D&I issue might be in a short 1 hour. Yes, so just want to tell you a little bit about Encompass for those of us who join us. We are a social enterprise. We have been around for about 2.5 years. We do a lot of workshops and experiential learning program. We don't receive a lot of funding from other sources. Our most money-making thing is from the corporate workshops that we do. And for the corporate workshops that we do, we have free webinars like today, and we hope you enjoyed it. And if you like our work, please recommend us to your friends. So everything we do is around the SDGs. Oops, sorry. So they are the 17 SDGs goal. And for today, what we are talking about is really about gender and reducing inequality. So reducing inequality means a lot of different aspects, whether it's disability, whether it's LGBT, whether it's refugee. So just to give you a taste of some of the things we do quite a few things. We do eco tour, we do sustainable tasting, we do a lot of D&I education, whether it's on unconscious bias and all that. So you're welcome to look at our website. It's very interesting, actually. I don't know if all of you are from Hong Kong or some of you are not from Hong Kong. So I've been doing this webinar for about a year now, and we often have people who are in Europe or even South Africa or even Iran joining as well. So it's really quite a diverse group. So a little bit about diversity. So today the topic is on diversity. It can be religion, it can be disability, it can be sexual orientation, it can be race and everything. So yes, this is diversity in a very broad sense. For me, I think, at least in Hong Kong, I think the discussion on diversity is sometimes can be very, very one-dimensional. It can be just about race or just about LGBT or just about gender. And for me, at Encompass, we try to have an intersectional approach. So if you go to our website, we also have a seminar on intersectionality that's coming up. If you want to sign up for that, that's also free. And I don't know how many of you have seen this diagram. It explains the difference between diversity, inclusion, and equity. And to put it very simply, I know it's a very complicated diagram, and don't worry about any of this. You will get a slide deck and also a recording after today. So diversity is really the multiple identities that are represented in an organization, diverse view, whereas inclusion is trying to take that diverse view into account to make that sense of inclusion with everybody. And then equity is make sure that the power is distributing in a way that everybody feel included. So they are very free related concept, but slightly different. So there's a very famous quote for diversity and inclusion is that diversity is being invited to the party, that you are being included, whereas inclusion is really taking a more active step of including your views into the viewpoint. So inclusion is being asked to dance. So if somebody asks you what's the difference between diversity and inclusion, this is quite a good quote to summarize it. So I don't know how many of you work in a D&I role in your company, or you have that in your workplace or in your community, but there are many research on diversity, and basically it will help, the diverse field will help you for better decision making, for better problem solving, make more productive team. So we won't go into detail on that, but just to give you an overview. And this is a slide I like to show. If you're in a company or in an organization, you can look at dimensional in a diversity in a different way, whether it's gender or including a female employee, including diversity, including disability and all that. So yeah, if you are working in a D&I role, perhaps in your company or school or whatever that is, and want to talk to one of us, you're welcome to. So with that, I'm going to pass the time to Joseph, who will tell you more about what design thinking is and how to apply design thinking in D&I, which is the focus of our topic today. So go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, I think you need to give me the right to share the screen
okay,
first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. So just, let's see, a little bit about myself. My name is Joseph. I know some of you here and some people I don't. I'm a heterosexual male, and I used to live in California for a long time. So today we're going to cover topics on diversity and inclusion and how to apply some design thinking to it, right? So my role today is really about being your tool guy. I don't want to be your lecturer, you know. So, you know, what's up with like a middle-aged man, you know, straight guy being here talking about diversity and telling you what's good, what's not, you know, that by itself, it's not diversity, right? But having said that, for inclusion, I think it should be everybody from the community to come out and to, you know, there's a thing called inclusive design, right? So it's not just about one special group promoting their interests. It should be everybody's interest. So you see me as a guest or speaker or doing facilitation of workshops, mainly related to design thinking. And I'm also a certified coach for something called Designing Your Life, which is applying design thinking on yourself. So just to kick things started, right? This is like a picture I saw on the internet from China. And for those of you who cannot read Chinese, I'll translate it for you. This is like a office, and you know, there's like a chairman's office door, and it says, before you knock on the door, think about 3 solutions of your problem or questions before you talk to me. So think about that for a couple of seconds and see, is this design thinking or not quite? And we'll come back to this later, okay? So design thinking, right? Some of you are not very familiar with that. And if you just Google, right, design thinking, you probably will see something like this. This is a classic model from the Stanford D School. Tells you there are 5 steps in design thinking. It starts with empathy, and then goes to define, ideate, prototype, and testing. So basically, methodology for innovations. And just one quick question for you guys. Where do you think the solution comes out? Is it somewhere from here or towards the end? So, feel free to type in the chat or just tell me. It's usually more from here, right? Towards the end. Somebody say ideate. It start with ideation, we come up with some ideas, but the actual solution itself comes after prototyping and testing, right? So this is where the solution comes out. So a very quick tip, tonight, if you only want to learn one thing, just one thing about design thinking, this is it. We do not start with a solution. We start with empathy. Okay, we do not jump to conclusions. We don't start with saying what the solution is before we even start thinking about understanding what the situation is, what the problem is, what the opportunity is, right? And design thinking is really human-centered design, and it's all about human being. So if you are trying to solve a problem that is, let's say, related to machines, you want to make some solutions for machines, then design thinking is not the way to go, because it doesn't really involve with humans. And a lot of people, if you go to like LinkedIn or Facebook, you look at people doing some posts like, hey, I went to a design thinking workshop today. And most of the time they would post something like this, like a wall full of post-its and people writing different ideas. And like, maybe Bella said, this is the ideation part of design thinking. It's not everything of design thinking. It's just one part of design thinking. And you may even see a whole bunch of different representations of design thinking. And let me tell you, they're all talking about the same thing. So don't get scared and don't get confused, right? They all have different terminologies, different ways to describe the process. But at the end of the day, they're all talking about the same thing. So for example, this on the lower left is called the double diamond. It's very famous. And it's basically just telling you it's the same thing. It may be 5 steps for some people, 4 steps for others, but the idea is the same. So this is one version of the double diamond. You can see one diamond here, and then there's another one over here, right? So why do they draw it like this? It's more about divergence and convergence thinking. So in the beginning, when we start with empathy, we want to understand as much as possible. So you can see we start with one point and then we just expand, right? We want to know as much as possible. And when we define the problem, we focus again, come down to what is the most important part of this, right? And then when we ideate, we brainstorm, we have lots of post-its, writing ideas, then we go diverge again. And then after that, when we prototype and test, we slowly focus down, find out what's the most important part, what works, and then that's our solution, right? So in these steps, we usually ask questions like, in the beginning, what is? When we ideate, we say, what if? And when we prototype, we say what wows. Wow is the wow factor. Like a couple of years ago, maybe, when the iPhone comes out, you see, wow, I really like this feature. I really want to try it. It sounds amazing. So that's the wow factor. And testing is asking what works. So basically on the left, we are talking about doing the right thing. And on the right side is doing things right. And now you can see how important empathy is, right? You could have the best solution providers in the world making all these kind of expensive prototypes costing millions of dollars. That's doing things right. But without solving the right problem, it would not work. And if we have time at the end, please ask me, I can give you some examples on people, even very big and famous companies, they have the technology right. They're doing the right thing, but they're solving the wrong problem. And it ends up becoming like a failure. And design thinking at the end is really going full circle, right? After you test and you implement, it's actually the perfect time to get more data, more information, and it feeds back to the loop. And we start with empathize again and ideate the next version. Okay, so back to this, right? So do you guys think this is design thinking or not quite? Any idea or just a guess?
So Joseph, you might need to translate that for non-Chinese audience.
Yeah, Bella and Jocelyn, they say no. I would agree with you guys. I would say this is not quite. The text says, before you knock on the door, think of 3 solutions before talking to me or asking me about these questions or problem. That implies if you don't have a solution, you are part of the problem. And as we talk about for the past 5-10 minutes, right? We never start with the solution. And even before talking about problem and you're already trying to present 3 different solutions, it's not how design thinking works. Jocelyn said, unless they know what the boss is thinking. That could be true. So it goes to the concept of start with why. There's a book with the same title by Simon Sinek. Maybe some of you have heard of this. It's about starting with why, right? What, the solution is what. And maybe some higher level managers, they will tell you how to do things. But mostly they just tell you what to do, right? And not too many people will tell you why they're doing it, or even in the community, why are we doing this? Why are we thinking about this solution? Nobody talks about it. They just talk about how and what. And only the why gives you the motive, and it gives you the proper goal, right? When you're stuck, you want to reframe, we go to why. You cannot do that with just what. So it goes hand in hand with the idea of never start with a solution. You start with why. And D&I and design thinking actually had a lot in common, and I'm going to show you some. We just talk about not jumping into conclusion, right? And it's just basically being non-judgmental, right? And designers, we love to prototype and test things, and that's bias to action. It's the same thing for D&I, the idea of change. You can't just talk about it, right? You have to act on it. And if you have read books or been to any design thinking workshops, you may have seen this Venn diagram, right? Business, user, tech, they come together, and then in the middle, that's the sweet spot, innovation, something like that, right? This diagram actually tells you that it's about multidisciplinary team. We want people with different background, different point of views, and to design something that makes sense for each of these people, not just one single group of people. And that is diversity by itself. Okay, so empathy, right? The first step of design thinking is empathy. And that is something that we focus on tonight. We don't have much time. And this is really a 21st century skills that everybody should learn. It's not just for business innovations. It's for life, for your career, for everything. And one example would be like Alicia Keys. In her master class, she talked about using empathy to write songs. And something really powerful and beautiful came out from it. And it has nothing to do with business innovations. So where do we start? Keep talking about empathy. Where do we start? We start with, in psychology, we call this a horizontal relationship. That means having you and the other person on the same level. You cannot put yourself slightly higher than the other person or slightly slower. The reason is empathy is actually quite different from sympathy. And I'm going to show you a very short video, about 3 minutes. And it's about the difference between empathy and sympathy. So let me know if you cannot hear the audio, okay? Okay, so that's Dr. Brene Brown. So to do a little recap of the video, right? Empathy is feeling with people. And the 4 qualities that she talked about is perspective taking, stay free of judgment, recognize emotions in other people and communicating on that. And it's really the connection with people that makes them feel better, not the words. Any questions on this so far? And pay attention to the word emotions. Okay, we're gonna go back to that. So, okay, so we know where to start, right? So when we actually starting to do our empathy research, right? Where do we start? Where do we go? So basically, if you see the bottom here, there are secondary research, primary research, and there are 2 types called quantitative and qualitative, right? So basically on secondary is something that you deal with other people's research. It's as simple as doing a Google search and reading other people's articles and reports and even talks and videos, right? And quantitative, it's more on statistics and data and reports, right? Qualitative is digging deep, understanding the why, finding out the why it's qualitative. And primary, it's dealing with raw data. You actually have to interact with your target audience and you have to do the analysis yourself. So on the quantitative, we usually start with like a survey, like monkey surveys, something popular, Google Forms, or data science, you do data analysis. And what we focus on tonight is the primary qualitative research, which is you interview with people, you actually talk to them, you do observations, you see what they were doing and observe their behaviors, or you experienced it yourself. Imagine you're the target audience and I want to experience a certain service or a product or something that happens in the community. How does it feel? And lastly, we have contextual inquiry. It's easier if I show you an example, and I'll show you after I talk about interviews, okay? So some tips on doing interviews, right? Our goal is to find the why, find the motivation, find out the goals, right? But we have to do it skillfully. If you start every question with why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It may come out kind of intrusive and annoying sometimes, right? So you have to use it wisely. And we need follow-up questions at the right time. Active listening. I know some people in the audience, they know a thing about this. It's all about the person you're interviewing. It's not about you. Don't judge, don't start processing what they are saying. You just there to take in all the information and also observe the body language, the tone of voice, pick up the language they use. If it's possible, it's even better if you have a second person taking notes for you, so you can focus on asking questions and then doing the observations. Ask open-end questions, avoid yes/no questions or binary answer questions. Ask about emotions and avoid leading questions. What is the leading questions? One example would be like, if we go to a restaurant, right? We sit down and the waiter come to you and ask, how many cups of coffee do you want? That is the leading questions, because the waiter assumes we're gonna have something to drink first, and then our drink of choice is coffee, right? So how many of you have seen this weird looking suit? It's designed by MIT, and the purpose is to restrain your freedom of movement. And you can also see there's a pair of goggles that kind of like partially blur out your vision. So the goal is to simulate an elderly, right? If you're an elderly and like the picture over here, and let's say go to the drugstore, do shopping, how's that experience to you, right? So that's experiencing. Okay, this is contextual inquiry. Like if you want to find out the lifestyle of a certain person, one of the best ways is just go to their home and open up their fridge and then just look at the fridge. You'll be surprised. You will find out a lot about this person. Like I was showing this picture to Benita before, and then we kind of have some clues, right? You can tell a little bit about this owner of this fridge. Like I see a lot of alcohol. You see there are some ingredients for cooking, but not much. So this person may not cook at home all the time. Some expensive ingredients, as a matter of fact. We find out later on that we have caviar over here and some like expensive organic chickens. And so it turns out this person is actually a celebrity chef who probably doesn't cook at home every day because he has a restaurant. And also like somebody's workshop, you know, there's tons of questions you can discover just by visiting their place. Okay, so do we have tools to use for doing empathy? Yes, we do. And this is one of them. This is called the empathy map. And over here, this is our target audience or user, sometimes people call it. And we record things down about the things that we discover. And the four most important elements are the do, say, and think and feel. Sometimes we have see and hear, but sometimes they are not critical in our research. And sometimes people only do, say, think, feel, just four of them, right? The say and do is very obvious. You can see what they are doing. And when you interview them, you talk to them, that's what they say, right? The think and feel, not so much. Sometimes you could ask them like, how do you feel about something? And what were you thinking at that time? Sometimes you have that opportunity, sometimes you don't. And sometimes they don't tell you a very good picture. So you need to use your empathy skills to figure out what they were thinking at the time and how would they feel. And at the bottom, it's pain points, right? We talk about the stuff that they complain or they're not happy about. What was the problem? That's the pain points. And the gain is basically what do they want to achieve at the end? What's their goal from this whole experience? You know, what do they want to get out of this? So this is the empathy map. And remember, when we talk about emotions and feelings, don't just have them say something like, oh, I'm happy, I'm unhappy, or I feel happy, or I feel sad. I feel good, I feel bad, you know, expand their vocabulary. And this is not easy to start. This is a very demanding thing to do for people to upgrade their emotional intelligence. But it's very good practice, you know, try to have them use different words to describe their emotions. So what's the goal of doing all this, the empathy map and capturing down all this information? We want to do this to get insights. Insights help us to define the problem. And from there, we can ideate and find solutions, right? So getting useful insights are very important. So maybe before we go to like trying out codes and things that we get from the LGBT community, maybe I can give you a couple of examples and just think about and critique and see how they go, right? So the first one is, a mother loves her baby. What do you guys think? Is that a good insight? Does it tell you a lot? Right, Benita says, probably not, because that is something that everybody knows, right? You don't have to do a lot of research to come up with that. You know, it's just a very general statement. It's true, but it's not telling you a whole lot. And it certainly does not inspire you to design something right away, right? So I would say that is not a very good insight. But how about this? Say, parents are willing to pay a premium, say, give you data, up to X% more on products that are proven to be beneficial to their children, especially when they trust the brand. What do you think about this insight? Is it a good one, better one, not the best, not yet, or what? I would say this is not a bad one, but looking at the second sentence, especially when they trust the brand, I would dig deeper. I would look for the reasons why they would trust the brand. You know, under what conditions would they start to trust this brand? That would be a much more powerful insight, right? So another one, so this is the context, right? Charities, they often have restrictions on blanket donations. You know, if it's slightly dirty or it's ripped up, they will not take it, right? So many people end up throwing away their old blankets because they don't know what to do with it. And from our research, we find out actually animal shelters, they are constantly in demand of blankets, and they do not mind if the conditions is not perfect. So I would say this is a decent insight, because as a designer, it actually inspires me to take some actions, right? It inspires me to design something. Hey, can we connect people with blankets to donate to organizations that collect these donations, and then to the animal shelters that really need these kind of blankets? Given the context as I'm trying to design something for social innovation, or, you know, reducing waste, or helping out NGOs, or helping out animals, right? So I would say this is an indication of a decent insights. It's hard to find like the perfect one. You know, sometimes it just hits you, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the context. Okay, so now I will hand it over to Benita, and she has some things to say about the LGBT community. You need to unmute yourself, Benita.
Sorry. Yeah, so I'll be very brief. So today we will use LGBT as a case study. You will see some quote from the LGBT community, but for those of you in living in Hong Kong, you know, we have different diversity issue, where it's ethnic minority, whether it's new immigrant and aging population. So the technique we use today can be applied to different issues. So I don't know which community you work with. So I just want to share this. In Hong Kong, if we look at SDG 10, the reduced inequality, our Gini coefficient is pretty high, meaning we are in a very unequal society. And actually, this is an article a few years ago by an NGO called Resolve, which work on a lot on social inclusion, saying that we have a very diverse population. We have different demographics, but we are not truly inclusive. So as I explained earlier, diversity and inclusion, they're related, but not the same thing. So we have a very diverse population, but have we actually include those opinions? So this is a slide I prepared with Encompass and also some data from community business. It's about like what are some challenges for LGBT employees in work. And I know some of you do work in maybe a multinational firm and you see this some of this issue in your community, whether it's coming out, whether it's policy, whether it's legal environment, whether it's a connection with other people. We won't go into in depth, but some of the pain point that Joseph shared today will cover some of this. So I think the basic message here is whether you're differently able or whether you're gay, we're all human. And a lot of us, a lot of what I do in Encompass and why Encompass is called Encompass is we really want to create an inclusive environment for the community. So just to have a very quick preview, what we do at Encompass here, we do everything from unconscious bias to cultural competency to racism. And again, if you want to learn more about us, you can find us in our website. And I just want to really recommend if you want to look at intersectionality, which the intersection between the religion, the gender and all that, we also have a free talk on that. So yeah, I'll just be very brief. So I think the take home message here is this slide that I shared on the challenges on LGBT and not just for employee, but I think in the general community for Hong Kong. So I think with that, I'll pass back the time to Joseph, which will share with you some quotes we get directly from the community. So Joseph, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so these are quotes that we got from actually interviewing people, and this is primary research. It's not something we pull from the internet, right? And I'll read it to you, and let's do the first one together and see what we can get out of it, right? So the first quote is, "A major concern is loneliness. When we get old, we have no partner, which is common in our community. Even far from retirement, but for being a gay single man who just hit his 40th birthday, I really feel anxiety of being lonely and struggling to find a regular, stable partner." So this is the say, right? Do, say, think, feel. This is the say. We don't get to see what he does, right? It's just an interview. So this is the quote. And first of all, can anybody kind of deduce what his feelings are and what is he thinking? And there's no wrong answer, really. Anybody is welcome to try, give it a try, and see what it is. And I'll give you some clues, right? So the general theme on this quote is about loneliness and having the difficulty to find a partner for dating, for a relationship. So in the full context, I would be very interested in knowing why is it different from, let's say, a heterosexual person, having hit the age of 40. Is it easier for them to find a date compared to a gay person? And why is that? It feels like he's feeling hitting a roadblock that it's difficult for him to not just find a relationship, but find a stable relationship. So the theme is to having the channel, right? To look for people that are also looking for people to date maybe around his age group, same geographic area, and somehow it's difficult for him. And his frustration is he's thinking that he should be having a stable relationship by the age of 40 or older, and it's not happening for him, and he's not happy about that. Okay, I see some response. Hopelessness, fear of being alone and isolated, lack of support in society, and also in personal relationship. Midlife crisis is also a common theme. And if I dig deeper, I would explore the issue of trust. Trust is very important in the relationship. And maybe trust has something to do with getting a stable relationship also, right? So how about the next one? Different person. So when interviewing for a job or starting a new job, LGBTQ populations oftentimes needs to decide whether they want to come out to the interviewer and the manager and team. While many companies in the US now brand themselves as advocate for D&I and their website, the job candidates, new hires will not be sure if people they are going to meet are actually welcoming or friendly towards their gender and sexual orientation. So what's the general theme about this one?
Joyce, you have something to say about that? I know you do a lot of recruitment. You can type in the chat room. I know I'm putting Joyce on the spot.
If you just want to talk, please feel free to unmute yourself and share.
Sure. No, I think that quote definitely, you know, it speaks for it. And a lot of places where we feel that companies have marketed themselves as D&I, but in actual sense, you don't know unless you really meet the people and during the interview, and also really building connections and knowing people who are actually, because or else it will just be kind of like a slogan or a job ad.
Yeah. I think this is also a very interesting design question. The underlying thing is this wasn't a problem before, right? Like before they advertise their LGBT friendly, I think most people would not even bring it up in their interview or think about bringing it up because it's, you know, I assume a lot of people, they just want to focus on their ability to do the job in the company rather than just, you know, come out of nowhere and talking about their sexual orientation. But now it becomes an issue for this person because they're not sure if I want to talk about it or should I not talk about it, right? So that was a problem that they did not have before, but now becomes an issue. You know, I may not say that problem, but at least it's an issue. So that is quite interesting.
Can I share something, Joseph?
Yes.
So I do have the experience. So I'm a very small company, not a big company. But when I hired my intern, I remember like about a year ago, there was a university student who interviewed for my job, and she looks perfect in paper, and I will hire her anyway.
Yeah.
But I was just so surprised in the first thing she said doing her self-introduction. She's like, I'm a bisexual girl sitting in Hong Kong. I really want to work for you about inclusion. And I've done a lot of interview with my other position. I've never seen people using that as an opening line. But I guess because of the things I do, people are very open about talking that to me. Yeah.
And they know they're talking directly to the company, not through some HR, like not 3 or 4 levels down, right? So that could be also a thing, especially if the company is big enough, right? They have some corporate policies. Maybe it's a policy, maybe it's not, and they're not sure if the person they're interviewing them are 100% with what the company says. That is, I think that's fair, right? And that is also, I may share some examples later on about companies' HR policies, right? As a matter of fact, I think some companies, they they would just tell HR, some questions are off the table, right? Unless you really want to share. So the feel is obviously feeling insecure and having the difficulty to decide, should you say this or not say this, right? Unless you know 100% sure, like the example that Benita gives, right? The person that interviewed with her, she probably knows 100% sure that Benita is welcoming this. That's why she said that, right? Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Okay, this one, also a different person. Speaking as a transgender man who has the privilege to pass, my daily struggle is largely to do with the discrepancy between my ID document, which still says female, and my gender identity, which is male. So as Hong Kong requires to use the ID card most of the time, and discrepancy is essentially crippling for me because people are suspicious of me and I have to out myself whenever I present my ID, when I go to the bank, visit a friend in a residential building, rent a place, get stopped by the police on the street. So this is talking about some really inconvenient pain point, right? It is about pain points. It's complaining about something. So what do you think the general theme and underlying message of this, or her think and feel, his think and feel? I can see one of the theme on this is it's about the use of ID, right? ID is something that to identify a person, like the government or some institution or somebody wants to identify this person, they look at the ID. And it has a conflict with how this person wants to be identified. So it's two different things, right? How do you want to be identified and how people identify you, right? And it's difficult because it's involved with the government, and it's not easy to have the government to change how they format the ID. And it also may have something to do with, if I want to dig deeper, how this person present himself. And if it's this person the neutral gender more appealing or not? Benita, you have a comment?
Yeah, I want to share a slightly related story on the ID card. So this case we have is a transgender man. So there was a recent case. I don't know how many of you have read the newspaper. It's an actual case. So a transgender female went to underwear shop to try on a female lingerie. Her ID card is already a female, so she is fully transsexual. Both her ID and her gender identity is a female now.
Okay.
However, the shop manager think that she looks quite masculine and was refusing her for using the female room. This lady ultimately made a complaint to the EOC, and I think it was just a day or two ago that the company also issue a formal apology on that. So it is interesting that even when your ID card and your gender identity match, because of physical appearance, you would also face discrimination in the community. So I think the ID card issue have several layers. Yeah. Yes,
and just to add to that a little bit of a side story. My cousin, he's currently retired, but he used to be an investigator in Los Angeles. And he was telling me, like, whenever they do arrest right now, they actually ask the person what's their gender. Even though this person looks like a man, you ask him, what is your gender? If that person reply as a female or identify as a female, they would ask for a female officer to do the arrest.
Can I share something?
Yes.
The one that Benita just told is similar, and it's trending case back in the Philippines. It's about a gay going into. It's about a comfort room, the he and the she thing. It's the gay one went into the lady's room because her appearance is already, or his appearance maybe is already a girl, a lady. But
Okay.
then the clothing, I mean, is already in a lady. But then the guard in the shopping mall prohibit him entering into that comfort room because he still looks as masculine on the face, even though he have a long hair.
Yeah.
And that's brings up your use reaction in the community, and the senators even thinking of putting a LGBT separate comfort room. That is being in debate. Actually, it's still in debate in the Senate about it, or if it's really need to do such thing in the big shopping malls and big establishments that have comfort room facilities about it.
Yeah. I think that the bathroom is definitely a very controversial topic.
Yeah.
And, I always ask this, like, why they still having, the bathroom divided in such a fashion? I originally had some insights about, like, there's in any shopping mall, there's always a higher demand for a female to use the bathroom because of the long waiting. Anyways, why do you just have, neutral bathrooms? Anybody who needs to use it can use it. That is something,
yeah. For my own opinion also, you don't have to fool yourself. Why? If you can use the male bathroom, then you consider it, then you will go there into use. But then if you can no longer use the female one, why not go into the male one? So
yes, please go ahead.
For me, there must be a respect and a freedom for you to choose, because anyway, you will just go there for the call of nature, or I don't know if some people is too particular on something.
Yeah, I actually see that all the time in the States, like women going to men's bathroom, especially in places like maybe the stadium when you're watching a ball game or something, and nobody say anything about it. We even try to give her privacy, like, oh, please use this stall at the very end of the bathroom, or if you prefer, or something like that. And there's no problem with that. I don't know why. Okay, so we move on to the next one. I know we are hitting 10 o'clock right now. I understand that we said the ending time is 10 o'clock, and if you have to go, please feel free to do so. If you like, please stay and maybe join us for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. We can finish all the quotes and do some sharing. So this is another person, right? When I tell some of my friends that I'm bisexual, they don't believe or hold strong suspicions on this person. One even asked me if I have dated any person of the same sex. will we ask heterosexual person if they have dated anyone of the opposite sex to prove their own sexual orientation? This sounds like a pain point and a frustration. This person is very frustrated, right? What do you guys think? What is the underlying theme, and what is the think and feel about this quote? I would say it has something to do with like how the general public, right? Because of, I shouldn't say her. It doesn't say is a him or her, but this person's friends, they are heterosexual people, right? Just the majority of the people, and it has something to do with how the majority perceive a bisexual person, right? No trust and compassion. Very true. And they even question this person, right? Are you serious? Are you kidding? Or are you making a joke? Are you really bisexual? And maybe for them it's not offensive, but for this person, I would almost say, right, just by this quote, I don't know the whole context, right? But just by this quote, I would almost say this person is hurt by those comments. Yes, no respect. And it's about mindset and how people are educated or well informed about how to interact with your friend when they tell you they are having a different sexual preference or orientation from you, right? This is inclusive design right there, right? If you were to do something about it, use this quote and find some insights. How can we help them, right? Any more comments on this one?
Maybe I'll share briefly. So
Yeah.
I have done LGBT advocacy with the IDAHOT before, and one of
Yes.
our topic is on biphobia. I think not directly related to this quote, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding within the LGBT community as well. They think the bisexual people might go both ways, like they can be both liking opposite and same sex. And another, I think, implied thing in here is like, do we actually need to date somebody to know that we have that bisexual tendency? And what does bisexuality mean? Does it mean just romantic tendency, or does it mean sexual preference? So,
Yeah.
for example, for myself, I don't consider myself 100% lesbian. I have had a romantic relationship with men, but I've never had a relationship with men. But does that mean I'm bisexual or not? I think, like, how do you define that sexuality? I think you can really go deep here. What does like sexuality and meaning? We actually need to know to date somebody of an opposite or same sex to know that you have such tendency.
Yeah, or just having an interest, right? Let's say we go eat together and I'm just telling people, hey, I'm a vegan. Why do I have to prove to everybody that I'm a vegan? I'm just telling you that's my preference, and that's about me, right? So absolutely no respect. It's having to ask somebody to prove that what they tell you as a preference is it's quite rude. Yeah. Okay, the next one, right? So the lack of multilingual community spaces that are accessible, creation of inclusive spaces, especially for more marginalized members of the community, the L, B, T, and I of the acronym, ethnic minority members, low-income members, and differently abled members. So this is more like a I wish kind of thing, right? It's not 100% a complaint. It's not a pain point, but there's something they want. So it's slightly different from the previous one. So if you want to like, sometimes you can try to use some keywords, right, to identify the theme. Any keywords that you guys can think of? I would say like maybe accessibility is one. Say don't have access to a multilingual community. Especially maybe for Hong Kong, I still feel that it's very divided in terms of the language barrier. What do you think, Benita? Like there is a community out there, but like some of them, they don't speak Cantonese, and Cantonese speaking people, they just prefer to, communicate in Cantonese. They don't want to, communicate in English.
So I don't know if Jasmine has something to work on, say about this. I know Jasmine also work in the space. So for me, I think if this apply to Hong Kong, it's definitely, I think in Hong Kong, there's a lot of the LGBT communication and events in English, just as this one, unfortunately, maybe we need to do it in Cantonese.
Absolutely.
But I also think like in Hong Kong, the LGBT discrimination issue is also a class and English language issue. If you are very local, you don't work on a certain profession, or maybe a marginalized community, whether you are a migrant worker or disability, it's a lot harder for you to get those resources. I know there are people in the community who are working. I have a friend who's working on LGBT and disability. I think there are definitely more on that, but definitely not enough. So I don't know if Jasmine has something to add on that. I know Jasmine worked a lot on this area.
Hi, Benita。
廣東話係咪㗎？轉台係。
係可以啊，但係咪有啲外國人？
我覺得整返英文好啲。
Yeah, I think there are some English speaking.
Yeah, I totally agree with Benita. I think LGBT plus individuals in Hong Kong already experience a lot of discrimination. I mean, sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious because of misunderstanding or no understanding at all. And then like the idea Benita mentioned earlier about the intersectionality. So the local LGBT plus friends, they experience all the challenges, but also like the LGBT plus individuals from other, especially the minority, the marginalized ethnic groups, or people with disabilities. I mean, if they have intersectional identity like these, I mean, they experience even more. And so, for example, like languages or accessibility or other considerations, I think people just in general do not understand, and they have no platform to learn more. And something Benita just mentioned really touched my heart, because I have been really trying very hard to convince companies to have more, for example, like different languages training on LGBT plus, because some of our clients not only have Hong Kong offices, they also have other locations, but just because usually in the business world, people understand English. So, but I have proven so many times with surveys from the participants, I mean, even understanding English, the impact is significantly different if we deliver the same contents in their local mother tongue language. So I really been trying very hard to convince like different companies to do that. So thanks for letting me to just speak it out loud again. So thanks, Benita.
So just, do you want to give a 20-second intro of who you represent and what you do for those who don't know you?
Hello everyone, my name is Jasmine, and I work in a not-for-profit organization. It's called Community Business. So we actually go to different companies in the business sectors and try to promote diversity and inclusion. And so all of the things that we have just discussed, they are like the D&I, I mean, meaning diversity and inclusion space that we have been trying to work on. So LGBT plus is one big one, people with disability and gender and other things. And my role is to provide consulting and training services. So thank you, Benita.
Thank you.
So I think we have 2 more quotes. Maybe we'll go through them quickly.
Yeah.
We'll just open the floor for those who want to say.
Yes. Okay, so the next one is, I wish we as an LGBTQ plus community would lift up more than tearing each other down. For example, when I came across an LGBTQ plus creator video or post online, the content creator does not appeal to me. I refrain from saying anything negative and divert my energy towards supporting and encouraging those creators that I resonate with instead. We make a bigger positive difference, encouraging someone versus tearing each other down. What do you think about this one? I think one of the underlying theme is the desire to unify the community, even though, of course, in any community, there are people with opposite views, points of views, and people argue. And, with the online, cyber culture, it's very easy to just type something really mean, and, it's, when you see something you don't like, and you end up hurting people's feelings. And this is a desire to be more positive. Maybe even something, if I want to talk to this person more in the interview, I would ask, like, what is your dream about this community's future, right? What would you like to see in your perfect world, right? How people interact with each other, how do they unify as a community? And maybe something will come up from there, right? This is a very positive thinking person, so I'm confident that they may have some pretty interesting ideas on how to make this place better, for everybody. Any comment on this?
I'll just quickly add, I think
Yes.
this, I don't know if Jasmine shares similar view. I think even within the LGBT community in Hong Kong, like I said, some people have misunderstanding of the bisexual community or the transsexual community, the gender fluid community. And there's definitely some hate speech around when different organizations do different things. And I do like this quote. I think instead of we should all stand in solidarity, and also, of course, and not only within LGBT, but different type of oppression. And I think that's the idea of intersectionality, whether you are marginalized because of a disability, because of your sexual orientation, or because of a race, all oppression are actually the same. So if we stand in solidarity, and instead of just hateful comment and just try to support each other, I think that would be a better community as a whole, and not just within LGBT.
And I may want to add something. There's also maybe there's also a need for people to unload their frustration or energy somewhere, right? If they don't have a channel to release those frustrations, they will end up just unload it on some other person that they don't even know, right? So if you have channels for them to, like, if they want to complain about something, give them the channel to complain. And then they, maybe there are some positive effects. Okay, the next one, integrating empathy into hiring and onboarding process. The company will be able to really step into the shoes of sexual minorities. For example, hiring managers could send a welcome message listing how the team is zero tolerant against discrimination and how the team is valuing diversity and inclusion within a small unit, etc. They can put gender pronouns after the names in Zoom, for example, so that interviewees and new hires will be less nervous when deciding coming out or hiding their identity, which improves their interview and onboarding performance. So this is another wish, right? I wish this would happen. Yeah. And interestingly, I actually think maybe not in Hong Kong, but I think in other countries like North America or Europe, this is like the standard, right? Like first day on the job, you go to orientation, and they always talk about two things, right? Sexual harassment, don't do it. And then respect on other people's identity. And that should be like the standard company policy. And they even give you like channels to complain. You don't have to even complain to your boss, right? There, you can just email somebody higher up and they will read your email and understand what the problem is. So Joyce would say, we ask all our recruiters to put their pronouns on Zoom and how putting candidates at ease for sure. Yes, yes. And it's not a standard practice for many companies, but I certainly feel that it's welcome. Yeah, so, yep. Okay, let's move on. Okay, why, while I'm fighting to change my ID policy, the ID thing comes up again. I hope companies can extend their coverage to, so the transgender community can be at ease, for example, offering different options of suffixes in the application form. Free to choose Mr. or Miss. Also, it would be immensely helpful if employers have some kind of LGBT plus workplace policies that protect us, like uniform policies. Yes, this is yeah, it goes back to the idea of how the company is serious about this. And I just want to add, you know, not just policies, but having a regular basis workshops, and not just have a one-day workshop and forget about it. You know, you just you have to come up with ideas and action plans to do things out of these workshops to be more inclusive. You know, how do you do that in your company? Any other comments on this one? Benita?
I have been doing a diversity survey with one of the companies, and not only for gender identity, I think for like even like religion or nationality, maybe
Yeah.
it's an option for people saying prefer to self-describe because maybe we don't have a good term for it, or
Yeah.
or prefer not to disclose. So maybe some people don't want to mention, and I think
Yeah.
I've done similar workshops for university, and we have talked about it, because I think some of the pronoun that people may be using or the identity they used to
Yeah.
up themselves maybe is out of the HR reach. So if we want to keep the option as open as possible, and of course that will
Yes.
require extra work, but I think to just show to that option, it definitely shows a sense of
Yeah.
inclusion. Yeah.
Like somebody would like to use they, right? They and them. I've seen some people, they prefer that way. So at least leave like a blank choice, like the third one is like a blank, right? You can fill it out, and you know, I don't want to use him or her, but I want to use them. So, you know, give them the choice, right? So this is much easier to do than the your official Hong Kong ID, because this is private sector, and there are many ways to show that you're more welcoming, and it actually needs a lot more empathy on this area as well. Okay, so you know, I'm just gonna go quickly on this. You know, the theme that I talked about earlier is about what people don't have and they don't want. We want to keep it that way, right? So that will be the one on here. And most designer will focus on these two. What they don't want and they have, their problems. We want to solve their problems. But maybe better, it's on top of that, you give them what they want, but they don't have, like their dreams, right? More blue sky. And also keep in mind, when we design something, when they have something and they want, keep it that way. Don't go 2 steps forward, 1 step back.